Welcome to our podcast. It's not all black and white. I'm Sarah. I'm black.
I'm Matthew. I'm white. And this is the Interracial Couple Podcast. And today we're going to talk about something that I'm going to go out on a limb and say nobody listening to this has ever experienced.
What, being arrested?
Not being arrested, but being arrested in Kenya. I don't think we're going to have a lot of people listening who've been arrested in Kenya.
No, probably not.
No. So a couple weeks ago, we were actually going to pay school fees for a high school student at Elbargon, which is Sarah's high school alma mater. And on the way, I had this great idea that I was going to film the police officers who pulled over our matatu, which is a 11 passenger van. Actually, I don't even think they're 11 passenger van. I think they're like 7 passenger vans that they fit 11 people into. And then if nobody's watching, then they fit like 14 people into.
Yeah, right? Literally about 18 people can go in these vans.
Mm-hmm. And so
plus chickens, plus luggage.
Right. So we were heading on a matatu to Elbargon, and here in Kenya, very often, but particularly the lower grade of a matatu, the more likely you are to be stopped by a police officer. And when they are stopped by a police officer, there's a chance that they're probably doing something wrong. So there's just always this expectation that the driver pays a bribe to the cops, and the cops put anywhere from 50 cents to $1 in their pocket, and they keep going. And it happens every single time. Every time.
Every single time. But this time, we were sitting in front.
Right.
So I noticed the driver take 50 cents note, equivalent of a 50 cent note, and put it in between his driving license. And I was like, I don't think I asked him why they give bribes. Normally I ask them, why are you choosing to give this cop a bribe? And he's just like, he's gonna, if I'm arrested for some stupid shit that they come up with, it's gonna waste my whole day. So I just choose to bribe. So we knew it was coming.
And this has happened. Now, we've sat in the front row, and quite frankly, I actually have a phone with plenty of pictures and videos of cops taking bribes from the matatu drivers. And I just need to give a little sort of disclaimer that the power is in the hands of the cops. These matatu drivers really don't want to pay the bribe. Sometimes it's, they know that they're doing something wrong, and therefore it just kind of keeps the system flowing, as it were. But then, other times it's just, it just creates the system where, one person has a lot more power than the other. And so in order just to be able to feed their families, they just pay the bribe. And we had a matatu driver that said between here, where we live in Nakuru, and Nairobi, which is about a 3-hour drive. It's not really that far, but it takes a long time. That it can cost anywhere between $5 and $6,
which is what he makes in a day.
Right. So it can actually take. It can see. Well, that's probably what he makes after he pays his bribes, I presume. But
he told me that he makes an equivalent of about $5. And this was the one that was really angry. He has 4 daughters in high school. But he was just like, I'm forced. It's not like when I asked him, it was when we first moved, and I asked him, why do you choose to pay? And he's just like, if I don't pay, I'm going to lose 3 days of work because they have so much power. So I would rather just pay. And that's when he told us he pays about $5. And he makes $5 for every trip he makes.
Right. So that means if he's making 3 trips in a day, which is almost impossible.
It's impossible. He makes two
trips a day. So he's going to make about $5 a day.
No, 10.
He's making $10 a day. But then he pays 5 in bribes? Or
no,
is that after?
That is actually calculated as part of the expense.
It's cost of doing business.
Cost of doing, yeah.
So $10 a day in order to put his kids through school, feed his family, put a roof over everyone's head. And it was actually when I first heard that I just started to get really upset. And I'm like, I'm just going to take pictures. If I'm sitting in the front seat where I can see, I'm going to take pictures. Well, this time when we were going through, I decided that we're coming up, and I pull out my phone and I'm videoing. And then I just kind of like put my phone up here and I'm filming so I can kind of get out the window. And when the cop sees I'm doing it, he flips out because basically I now have him on camera taking a bribe, which is illegal. and it's immoral. It is it's stealing. It is it's everything that corruption is, and it's one of the things that actually I think keeps it's one of the hindrances on the growth here in Kenya, which is that there's so much of this bureaucratic hierarchy that is run through informal bribes and just kind of keeps things, well, first of all, it takes a lot of money away from the poorest and the least able. So I'm upset about it. He gets pissed off.
He gets pissed off, but there were two other women cops who are in it all together, so she comes to the other side and she's like, what are you guys doing? And this is where the story I think for me becomes both frustrating and interesting when I look at the way I reacted, because they said, "Are you filming?" And I said, "No." No, I didn't say no. I didn't even answer. I pretended like I was dumb. And she said, "Let me see your phone." I show it. I show her what I was filming, and she goes, "Okay, we're taking you into the station. You are now arrested. We're taking you into the station." I know, and she asked me, "Is he filming?" I said, "How am I supposed to know?" And I think that to me is like when the story gets interesting, because we should just have been like, yes, we're filming.
We're filming you taking a bribe.
Yeah, but we didn't.
Right. Or it could have been the other way around, which I finally figured out. So they take us into the station.
But before they took us to the station, there's something like really interesting that happened that I've been thinking about and struggling with, was that as we're going to the police station, all of us, with everyone,
right? Because the cops then hop in the matatu with us and drive everybody to the police station. And if you want to know why the drivers just play the bribes, is that now everybody on this bus who has someplace to go, their day is now totally altered. And it would have been worse if it hadn't have been that it was you and me who were brought in, because if it was anybody else, the day would have been over for everybody.
Yeah.
And the matatu driver now has a family to feed.
Was pissed so what happened was like the matatu driver was pissed at me, and he's like, "Why are you guys taking pictures? Like, would you take pictures in America?" And I was like, and I was so apologetic about it. I was like, "I am so sorry, like I don't know why we were taking pictures." And I just kept apologizing for him choosing to give a bribe. Like, to me it was just like, if you don't want to go to the police station, maybe don't give a bribe. Maybe take a stand and say like, this ends today. Like, why am I apologizing? But I didn't come to that conclusion. Like, why am I apologizing for your mistake?
Well, it's not only his mistake. Why are you apologizing for actually doing the right thing?
Yeah, like I was I'm sorry. And then we go to the police station and we're taken to the
and we go into the police chief, the local police chief in the Njoro police station.
Yeah, they took just the two of us, so everyone else who wasn't filming was left in the parking lot.
Yep.
To wait and see what happens to us. And
right.
Yeah.
And at the beginning, I was nervous, and it showed up. And it's one thing afterwards you said was like, you were annoyed with me for being nervous. And it took me a while to actually get to the point where I was feeling confident enough to actually now kind of go into my beast mode, to go onto the attack. And I think one of the things that really there were a few pieces that shifted the conversation, but one of them was when he said, why are you filming me? And I said, I'm trying to think now if I actually said this or if it was just the thing that was sort of within me that shifted my own attitude, but was I wasn't taking videos of anybody taking a bribe. I was taking videos of police doing the right thing. I think I did say that at one point. And that was sort of this whole sort of taken off guard. They were defending something, and then I turned around and said, no, that's not at all what I was doing. I wanted to see what a great job everybody's doing. And that kind of took everyone aback, and there was kind of this moment, and that's when I realized, oh, okay, now, first of all, I have all sorts of power. There's nothing they can do to me. And also, there's nothing they will do to me as small-town cops with a white guy for them to blow this thing up over me, all of a sudden, like the attitude and everything started shifting. But it took a little while because I was nervous. Here we are. There's the police chief, and everyone's like yelling at me, and they're angry at you.
They were angry at me, but what was actually really interesting for me was like when we got into the office, the police chief was like, "Everyone have a set," and I chose to stand. I said, "No, I'm okay. I'm gonna stand." And like watching everyone while I'm standing was actually a confidence booster because I was standing. And so I was like, I practiced like a little bit of like power move when I was standing there. And so I gained back my confidence that I had lost inside the matatu with the driver apologizing. So where you were so nervous, I got like a boost of like confidence. And I was just like, wait, why am I here again?
Mm-hmm.
Like, so I say like, am I being arrested? I was like, is filming illegal? And he was like, no, unless you're filming inside the police station or like in military stuff. And I was like, then if it's not illegal, like either you arrest me or we're leaving. What else transpired in that office?
Yeah, so there was kind of this moment for me of just kind of like, so I sit down and I just kind of kick back and I've crossed my legs and just really had this conversation. And, you know, the police chief, she's saying, well, you know, so what are you, she was, you know, beginning her interrogation. And, you know, at a certain point I'd say, we all know what's going on here. You know, this is not, why is everybody here acting stupid as though you're not doing something illegal. And that's why you're having this problem. Right?
Yeah. And then she was like, how many cops, like, have you been filming?
Yeah, I've done this before. Yeah, I've definitely done this before. And I think that was where, you know, then things started to shift. And I think what was funny, at a certain point, you're getting pissed because as soon as we started to get the upper hand in the conversation,
I was so pissed. I was just like, first of all, I told the other cop, I am not talking to you until you let the other people go. And the matatu driver had my change. So I said, you go to him. And I started giving orders. And I was like, you go to him and tell him that I want my change back. And I was like, this is how we waste time for Kenyans who are like innocent. Like, what did those people outside do? Like, if you wanna arrest us and have a conversation with us, it's the two of us who did something, not them. So I was like, we're not going.
So you have to let them go. So the police officer then went, and this was interesting because he didn't have your change. You hadn't paid yet, but we didn't have change. We only had like a $5 bill or something. So you sent her to pay and bring the change. This was interesting. So now the cop comes back in holding your money, right?
Yeah.
And there's this moment of like, are we gonna keep this money? Is this bribe money? So we'll let you go. And you're like, give me the money. So now we get the money back from the cops. And this whole thing is now, as soon as you started ordering them around, and I'm sitting there basically owning this room, because even though I was nervous, I just kind of sat back and I was gonna act calm. I wasn't calm, but I was gonna act calm.
Yeah, I was at that point, like, I just started thinking about those 14 people and I was pissed. And as soon as like I realized like, wait, I know like I did nothing wrong. Like there's nothing they can do. And then I just also remembered like there was like a thing. I was like, actually, I'm also like an American citizen. They don't mess up with American citizens. So I was like, worst case scenario, like we can call the embassy. Like I felt like there was like some cost, like there was something I can do. I can call a lawyer. I can afford to pay a lawyer. So I was just like, you are not wasting my time. And I was like, I gave them two options. Either
like put us in cuffs or we're walking out.
I'm walking out.
And it was so interesting because this whole kind of shift from this like coming in a little bit nervous to finding my center to, you know, being calm to say, you know what, I'm gonna handle this thing, to you now starting to give orders and then you getting angry. And then you said, you know what, if you're not putting me in cuffs, I'm walking out. And you walked out.
And I walked out.
And at that point she asked me some other thing and I really went into like a sermon, you know, because here we have the police chief and two other police. And it was, you know, I went into probably like a 10-minute, you know, like fire and brimstone because I like this stuff. I love I am a fan of religion. I'm also not a fan of religion all at the same time. And particularly, one of the things that fascinates me is how people love to just take parts of religion that are convenient for them, right? So going to church, I guess, is convenient, but stealing from the poor and equating stealing from the poor with bribery is inconvenient. So we're just going to kind of gloss over that whole part. So this becomes this whole moment for me to stand up, and I'm kind of going after them. And we know what's going on, and that and I shared that, hey, I'm a white man. I said, here we are, your bribes, whatever's going on here, is actually not going to affect me. It's going to have no impact on my life whatsoever. But in some ways, I was like, I'm doing just fine, right? But there are people out there who aren't doing just fine. And when you're taking from those people, you are not supporting the meek. You are not supporting the least among us. You are actually taking from the least and passing it up to yourselves and your bosses above you. And that's the exact opposite of what we as Christians are supposed to do. So I go into this whole sermon, and then Sarah comes back and goes, I'm leaving. I'm going to pay school fees for a young woman.
I was like, there's a mother and a young woman who I've never met, and I'm half an hour late. Because of you. And I was like, we gotta go.
So there
and
was.
And then they're all looking at me like, what is this woman? And I think like when I was standing outside, I got so frustrated. First of all, like I thought someone was gonna follow me when I walked out, but they didn't. But as I'm sitting outside in the parking lot, I'm just thinking that I got so frustrated. It's like, here we are, going to pay tuition for this, according to what we've been told, like really smart kid whose parents can't afford to pay high school for. She was about to drop out when we chose to like pay for her. And I'm thinking like, this is the reason like my country is not doing well. It's like this type of cops and like people taking bribe in like all kind of levels is what's making Kenya, is what's like affecting. There are so many other things, but this is like one of them. This is one of the reasons that this girl is not gonna get an education. So many like her, she just happens to be lucky that I went to this school and I can chip in something. But that was like my frustration was like, I am not rich, like I'm struggling to pay my bills, and I am like working really hard to like educate these girls and like find money to educate these girls, and you're busy wasting people's time and taking bribes. And I was just like,
right, it digs into all of the productivity. It digs into, and it's interesting because then that also becomes the sort of this focus, right? If the cops need to take bribes, and that actually becomes the focus, is how do I line my pockets as opposed to actually how do I serve, and how am I helping my country, the people here, to actually move forward. And every time we kind of those roadblocks get thrown up, that just becomes one more little impediment. And it's once you have enough small impediments, then you get to where you are here.
Yeah, I used to like feel almost kind of like sympathy and compassion for cops taking bribes before, like 10 years ago, when I thought like they get paid very little. So I thought, but then I'm thinking like, whatever little that you're getting paid, you actually have a salary.
Right, because let's look at this. So we were on our way to Albargan to pay school fees for this young woman, and the beginning of that was when Sarah started Ecodunia, and part of the mission was to make sure that some of the profits go towards supporting rural girls in the slums to to become educated. So this was our third girl. Actually, my father his present to me this year.
We're not making any profits. Like we haven't even actually sold any product. So
right. So
your dad.
So as a my Christmas gift, and we already actually were paying for 2 girls. My dad said I want to help pay for more girls. So he sent us. That was our Christmas present. So. There's this young woman. So actually the first thing Sarah did was call a teacher from her old school and said, hey, if there's any girls that that might need help, let us know. And he said, you know what we're going to do is we're going to wait and see when school starts. And if there's a kid who comes who either doesn't show up, who we know would have shown up or whatever, we'll call you and let you know. So a week into the first school year, or not even, maybe it was even the first day, we got a call, or you got a call saying, hey, you know what, our brightest student in the school is a girl, which is actually unusual because girls oftentimes have so many other household responsibilities here that by the time they've fetched water, gotten firewood, done cooking, cleaning, etc., they just don't tend to not have as much time to do their schoolwork, their homework, so they tend not to do as well. That's pretty often the case. Yeah. But this was a girl who is at the absolute top of the school, and mom was coming to take her out. Dad had worked in the lumber industry, and the lumber industry is pretty much shut down here in Kenya, so they have no money. And that's when he said, hold on, wait a second, call Sarah. Says, we've got the girl. We said, great, we can't make it for another week or so, but make sure that, tell the bursar, don't send her home, tell the mom we're going to come, we're going to meet her and her daughter. So that's what we were on our way to do.
Yeah, so I was like, it's interesting, like even talking about it right now, I feel like I'm getting frustrated. I'm getting angry.
About the system that keeps...
I'm getting the system that keeps, the country so poor that these girls are denied an education. Like, it's like systematic, and we can only do so much. We can pay tuition for these girls. We can try and employ people. But if the system doesn't change, it's just, a drop in the ocean. And I'm not saying like, I know like a drop in the ocean is something, but
Yeah. And I think if you look at all the money that's in the world, and let's even go right down here, the money that's in Kenya, this is a very poor country. I think 40% of Kenyans live at or below the international poverty level. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So, but when you look around, there's actually enough money for everybody in this country to live with dignity.
There's so much abundance, and of course, like in any other country, there's like always like the extremely wealthy, but in Kenya is like we have there's like no middle. There's like so many people with like either way too much money and too many people on the bottom with like nothing, and this girl was among one of those, after we met the mom, like I just understood like the way she lives at home. So but let's go back.
So we were arrested, and I think one of the things that came after that, because it's been something that I've been filming that for a while, and I haven't done anything with it. It was a little bit more of a I get really angry, and it's something that I recognize about myself is that I tend to get angry about I get very angry around injustice, and a lot of times it's things that actually I don't have control over. So there's kind of this moment of the kind of filming. It's like I don't know what to do with this exactly, but I can say something, I can do something. There was this moment then in going through this whole process, and we come back out and you said, you actually need to make this conscious. Is this something that you want to do? Because if you want, you can actually start filming every time, sit in the front seat, and just know that this is now going to be a part of your life, is going to be being arrested and taken into the station. And, how much do you want this to be a part of your life? And I think it became kind of an interesting question for me because it is important.
It is really important because when I studied development at UCLA, you go to all these classes and there's so much happening in the world that you feel like, I want to be a part of this. But the only thing you can do when you're part of it is just like feel like you're participating, but not really participating. So you go on Facebook and like write something about it, but you're actually not doing anything. And I think we're in our world today, like we're at that place where people are just like so frustrated with like the current state of the world that everyone wants to do something in all areas. But when you do something in all areas, like you actually do nothing. So I've had to be really careful about what I'm choosing to participate in and put all my effort,
right. Because in some ways you're, are you going to educate girls or are you going to fight corruption? Because there may not be enough time and space in the day to be able to do both of those things.
Yeah, I don't have the bandwidth. I don't have the resources. It's just like that day, like I realized like that whole thing took an hour of our time, and not just an hour, it took energy, right. So...
But now the other side of that is that we did two things that day that actually filled me with energy. And I think this is probably where some activists can actually become like addicted to it. You look at like Boniface Mwangi here in Kenya, who actually the documentary about him was just sold in the U.S. by the way.
Ooh,
and
nice.
I don't know what it's called, but I saw that. Right, but that you see there are people who become very, very active, and I can get it because all the problems that are going on in the world can be so overwhelming and just so depressing and sad. But as soon as you actually begin to agitate and you do something, there's actually this feeling of real satisfaction. That day ended up being an amazing day for me. I felt so good. I said, you know what? I stood for something that I believed in, something that had really frustrated me in the past. And every time, yesterday I was on a matatu there and back to Nairobi. I spent 7 hours on a matatu yesterday. And
Did you film?
I didn't film, but if I'm not sitting in the front seat, you can't really see anything. And also lately now I take the nicer matatu, and I think they're the wealthy people who own the nicer matatus, and I don't think they pay bribes, because I think if they do pay bribes, they pay them at the higher level and they get to go right by. But I see people getting pulled over all the time, and I see the cops there, and I just know what's going on. It's so upsetting and frustrating to me. But that day I actually wasn't. I actually felt like, you know what? I didn't just speak. I didn't just go online on Facebook and say I'm angry or repost some meme or something. Instead, I actually did something that felt good. And then we go and meet this girl, right? And
I think we should kind of finish how we left. Like, you were giving the sermon, and then they were like, "Are you a pastor?"
And I was like, actually, yes, I'm a mail order pastor, but I have my certificate.
And then they just was like, I think by the end, you guys were like, I was frustrated, and you guys were just having like a conversation where the woman was just like, they listened to you, like all the 3 cops in there.
The entire attention turned to my pontification, which I loved actually, because it's bringing this attention. And I think it's something that, because there's actually so much corruption in Kenya but there's also a country where, like yesterday I did a casting session in Nairobi, and we pray at the beginning and at the end of just a casting. There's a lot of prayer. The police, even still, right? When I went to go get my visa extension that one time at the local immigration office, and the guy wanted a $50 bribe just to give me a stamp, which he had to give me anyways. And we ended up just kind of walking out and going to the one in Nairobi. It's like at some point I'm like, wait, are you a Christian? And he goes, yes, I hope you are too. And I said, well, you're stealing when you do this. Like, it's one of the 10 commandments. It's really simple. Thou shalt not steal. But this whole thing of like, well, if we call it a bribe, then maybe it's not stealing.
Yeah.
And so that felt good. But yeah, when we walked out, it felt good to walk out and say, you know what? I actually stood for something I believed in. I didn't just stand for it with a meme. I stood for it with my actions. And then we also believe in educating young poor children in Kenya, or ones that that don't have access to funds, because just to go to high school here is expensive in a country where there are a lot of kids that whose parents make $2 a day doing simple labor. So therefore, showing up. That day ended up being one of my great days here, because I just twice in one day I actually got to put my actions where my mouth is, and that felt really, really good.
Yeah, I think from that day, there were a few things that stood out to me. Was like realizing for me that I was going to support you if this is what you needed to take on, as an activist of not bribing. But I knew I did not want to participate. I just didn't have the bandwidth for it. Mm-hmm. But I would support you if that's what you wanted to do. Second was just realizing actually speaking up for and not giving away my power. Even though those people in position of power doesn't mean I need to give, I need to give my power away. The second thing was I was really, really annoyed with myself, right. And I think that being annoyed with myself lasted for almost 3 weeks, because I realized I actually do that in other areas of my life where I apologize for other people's mistakes, So someone does something and it's their fault, and I'm trying to either make them feel good or I'm apologizing for it. So what I did with like the driver, to me, like he paid a bribe and then he got mad at me, and I'm apologizing, for having him been dragged to the police station. No, he should be dragged to the police station. He chose to pay it. I know the circumstance and I have compassion and empathy.
It's a major catch-22 for somebody. It's
yeah.
Like, I pay it so that I can drive people where I'm going. He's not, he shouldn't be paying a bribe, but he's also stuck in a system because he's got to pay school fees for his kids.
Yeah, I understand all that, but just because I understand all that doesn't also mean that I should apologize. Completely. And that was like why I was so like angry. Mm-hmm. And I was like, I have to look at areas in my life where I do this, because I know that I do this, so that was like really important.
But just going back, as you said, you don't have the bandwidth for it. But one thing that I realized when I came to Kenya, everyone says, oh, it's just kind of the way it goes. And right, we have another friend who's from the US. And I posted that video on Facebook because I was like, if they're going to confiscate my phone or whatever, I'm putting it on Facebook. It's not going to be taken away. So I post it, and this friend of ours who's also from the US, he's like, ha ha ha, welcome to Kenya. And I'm thinking like that could have very well been my attitude. Almost everybody we know, your family included, will say, that's just the way things work here. But it's actually not the way you work. Right?
No,
because when we were getting
give bribes.
Right, when we were getting that property for your mom in Kikope, and you had to go to the Land Bureau and verify the title, what you did that day is you sat in the boss's chair, waiting for him to come back, and you were going to let them close the entire office until the boss came back and signed the paperwork and gave it to you without you paying a bribe. And when he came back, the paperwork had been there, signed 2 days ago with a signature, but they weren't going to give it to you unless you coughed up money. And you're like, you even called me and said, I might get arrested. There are cops here. Bring me some food because I'm not leaving, and start coming this way. That way, if they pull me down to the station, you're already on the way. So it actually is something.
Yeah, I remember calling my cousin, and he's saying like, Sarah,
just pay the bribe.
Just pay. It's $5. You can afford $5. Like, you've wasted an entire day there. And I was like, I will not pay a bribe. But I feel like that's different from me taking, like, I have the bandwidth of like, when I walk into a government office, I will not, like it's against my values. And not only is it against my values, is like I have power to speak about what I want. So what happens is like people go into these government offices and they're intimidated by the people who work there. And I'm just like, sorry.
Right. They might not be able to read very well. They certainly don't know their rights.
And you can't do that to
Or
me.
if you take a day and they say, come back tomorrow, or basically pay a bribe, you think, well, if I come back tomorrow, it's going to cost me $2 to take a bus there, $2 to take a bus home, plus another day of missed, work. Now, at some point, it just becomes too much.
Yeah. And I know that, if whatever happens is like, these cops too, and the people who are government officers, they don't want to deal with someone like me. So they know who to actually intimidate.
Right.
So I used to be intimidated before, but now I feel like with age, with education, and I'm not easily intimidated by these people. So they also know how to do it too.
Yeah, they can sniff out the weak ones.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I'm not sure. I think will I do it again? I think I
am gonna.
I will. I will. It was a good feeling, and the difficulty was it was this progression of, even at first when they're like, I was kind of like trying to hide the whole thing. I felt a little bit like out of place, and I jumped in a little bit deeper without actually knowing all of the laws and all of my rights beforehand. But my confidence was bolstered, and then coming home and actually doing research and be like, oh yeah, I am perfectly, I was perfectly within my rights, and I'm willing to take that on. Is it going to be my endeavor? I don't think so. Maybe I decided I want to make a documentary about how bribery is impacting Kenya or developing countries. Could be an interesting topic. But but yeah, going to even if I'd gotten to spend some time, even if they had put me in cuffs and threw me in the slammer, like I was ready for it, and it would have been an adventure, and it wouldn't have just been like a dumb adventure. It's actually something that that I think is worthy of my attention and everybody's attention. And quite frankly, it's little things that stop it. We kind of forget very easily that if everybody just stops doing it, there's nothing you can do. I mean, Gandhi said that a long time ago. It was like, they can't throw us all in jail. They can't kill us all. It's just impossible. There's too many. There's 50 million people in Kenya. If everybody stopped paying a bribe, at a certain point, it can't be done. And there's always this thing of things are outside of my control. And there's something very cathartic about saying, no, this thing that is unjust is not outside of my control. It's fully within my control.
Yeah, I hope I get to live there where the consciousness of the country changes and everyone feels like there is power in not paying a bribe. And if what I'm starting to, I said I will never pay a bribe again, and I'm sure other people will join in, and then they will be like, if we all say no, then.
Yeah. And the nice thing is I got dragged to the police station for the first time, and both of my brothers have been in cuffs before, so I'm trying to. I'm feeling left out, so I feel much better now. Yeah. Anyway, well, good. Well,
this
has been it.
I hope we don't get arrested again, so we can record another podcast.
I hope so. All right, yeah. And the next one could be if we're broadcasting from inside a jail cell at the Nakuru police station. We'll have a more interesting backdrop anyways.
Thank you for listening to a podcast.
It's been great. It's not all black and white.
I am Sarah. I'm black.
I'm Matthew. I'm white. This is the Interracial Couple Podcast, and we will see you next time.